I hate to say it, but white folks are largely professional gaslighters when it comes to race. We are professional liars when it comes to race. It's part of white supremacy and how it functions and how it works. From the very first African that was enslaved, we have been gaslighting black folks as white people. That's our culture. That's our tradition. That's our indoctrination. And that's what we do. And that's what we do best. We lie every single day. And we lie to black people. We lie to each other. We lie to ourselves about race. We gaslight. Gaslight, if you don't know, it's a psychological term. It's where the abuser tells the victim that this reality of you being abused is not really happening. It's just something in your imagination. You're being paranoid. You're being too sensitive. All this abuse is not real. And if it is real, it's only because you deserved it. I was trying to help you. It's justified somehow. We have always justified our racism. And if we're not justifying it, we're denying it. If we're not denying it, then we're deflecting it. The last thing white people would do is simply acknowledge the truth racially. That's why I say we're bullshit artists. We are professional fucking liars and gaslighters. That's exactly what we do as white people, and that's the fucking truth. And if you deny it, you're a fucking liar. 90% of white people today, right now in America, no matter how young or how old, we've been so profoundly indoctrinated that we cannot simply acknowledge the truth racially. Can't do it. And if we do it, there's a but or a deflection. Can't do it. 90% of us will not do it. So this is why we are gaslighting academically. This is why Black history all around America right now is being criminalized. That tradition of gaslighting, that tradition of hiding, that tradition of pretending racism is not real is their educational system. And they want to protect that tradition. They do not want the truth to be out. People know that the hope is with the younger generation. Isn't that what they always say? I hope the younger people, I hope the next generation will do better. They know that if the truth ever gets taught racially, that's why CRT is banned. That's why if you talk about race, it's banned. All around America, states, counties, schools, teachers, threat of arrest, Black stories, beautiful Black books, banned, erased, censored, libraries, empty, criminalization of Black history, folks. Because why? Because white people are racist. White people are all about denying. White people are all about gaslighting. That's our tradition. Deny, deflect, never teach the truth, never acknowledge the truth. Because if we do, if we teach the truth, what will happen? White supremacy could be threatened. Economic advantages for white people, the dominant position could be threatened. They're threatened, like all bullies are threatened. They're threatened by their victims. So of course they don't want the truth to be taught. So what do? They keep it whitewashed. They keep the lies perpetrating.
Welcome to another special Friday edition of the Nick and CJ Show. I'm one of your hosts. I'm CJ. What's up, Nick?
What's poppin', my friends, my family? It's great to be back. We have another back-to-back banger guest for you guys. We have a friend of the show, Garland Nixon, will join us in around 40 minutes or so. If you guys didn't check it out, make sure you check out the conversation we had with Nico House on Wednesday, Nick at Night as well. So back-to-back with these amazing episodes. There's a lot to talk about, and that video hits on what's kind of going on right now, especially with the insane China rhetoric. Like, there's so much I want to bring up to Garland Nixon, especially regarding Ukraine. Like, you have the West that is melting down, and now they're trying to deflect away from the fact that China and many countries are now seeking for peace. And I'm going to show you guys a story from Bloomberg. We're going to dive in this when Garland Nixon joins, how there's like, we can't, peace is like the worst case scenario for the United States. What does that say about your side when peace is the worst case scenario? Oh, there we go. So I want to show you guys this as well, because there are also protests that go on in France. We're going to talk about that. I want to get Garland Nixon thoughts on this, because you have the West that's saying Putin and Russia miscalculated. Russia is going down. You're going to see the end of the reign of Putin. Meanwhile, you have the UK, who cannot keep a prime minister. You have massive protests in France. You have protests in Germany. In the United States, you have the Congress that has around a 20% approval rating. You have president that's like minus 15. You have all the Western leaders and Western societies that falling apart. But tell me more about how China and Russia are making missteps. There's a statement we'll get to later. I'll pass to you here soon, CJ, because this anti-China stuff is getting absurd. Even to the point we had Mika Brzezinski. She was like, "Why? I don't know. I understand that. Yeah, our government spies on you. I know Facebook doesn't spies on you, but why people need to be concerned about the Chinese Communist Party and they'll spy on you on TikTok?" You have Rokana, who was just on Democracy Now. I may cover this later, maybe tomorrow. So, man, could not shut the fuck up about the Chinese Communist Party. He wants you to be afraid of the Chinese Communist Party. Marianne Williamson on Glenn Greenwald couldn't shut the fuck up about the Communist Party. They have direction. I'm talking about the progressive, the NATO lefts, right? Their direction is trying to get you afraid of China, and China is being a peacemaker around the world. So after I pass to you, I'm gonna show you guys a segment from MSNBC where they go all in on China hysteria, and it doesn't even have to make sense to them. They just say stuff, and there's a reason why I'm showing you guys this nonsense. It's classic empire deflection. When we had late stage capitalism, we got millions of people going homeless. Our infrastructure is falling apart, getting ready to F. We got millions that don't have health care. You got the capitalist class, millionaire BlackRock buying up homes, right? They control it's. Despite that, they want you to focus on China as the enemy. We occupying Syria, been bombing Syria. There's a story I'm gonna show you guys later of massive famine in Somalia. That is because of the sanctions and bombings that we've been supporting there. But they want you to focus on China, and why they're doing this. Because China had a massive meeting with Putin. Xi Jinping and Putin met. And that was a sign of the shift of the new global order. 16 new countries are now interested in joining BRICS. That's another receipt I'm going to show you guys as well. You had Lula. Brazil is back. About to meet with Xi Jinping as well. So the West is floundering. And I see someone mention Iran. We now escalating tensions with Iran. This insane clip I'm going to show you. I got two of them. I don't know how much time I have. One of them, I may say one from later in the show, where this John Kirby is on Morning Joe. CJ, they're just having a coffee talk. Just casually talk.
Just chilling. Just hanging.
Just casually talking about invading Haiti. Just having a nice morning conversation talking about invading Haiti. Talking about how we're going to escalate tensions with Iran. Democrats and the progressives called out Donald Trump for his unhinged Iran deal, pulling out the Iran deal and his policies. Now John Kirby is like, yeah, the Iran deal not on our purview at all. We're not trying to do that. We need to maximize tensions in Iran. So as they maximize tensions with Iran, as they sending weapons to Taiwan, as they funneling a Cold War with Russia and China and sending arms to Ukraine, they are telling us to be afraid of China, the country who brokered peace between Iran and Saudi Arabia and won peace in Ukraine. Tell me how that makes sense. That's my opening monologue. Thank you for indulging me, CJ. I pass it to you. I got a lot to cover.
We can continue with the introduction, because to the point of what was said in the intro video by the guy, because I think your monologue was kind of spun off that. And I just want to repeat what I said anytime I play this video, and that is, this is what we need. It's not Black, Indigenous, and brown people's job to reprogram races. That's not our job. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Like, that's the job of white allies to people of color to go into their communities where other white people, their churches, wherever they know that these racist views are. It's their job to go and bring the message that you just saw in the introductory video.
Yeah.
It's their job for that, not us. We're to reap the benefits. It's like, you know what I mean? There's no praise to be delivered for you to stop supporting a system that's suppressing somebody. Like, this is why it's so infuriating to me when you give Abraham Lincoln credit. He freed the slave. What does that mean? Everybody has their own sovereign, like to be free. And because you decide to put on a piece of paper, we legally are not going to suppress you no more. We're supposed to jump up and for joy for you. Like, it's absurd to me. But anyway, that's my rant off of it.
Well said. Make sure you guys like and share the stream. If you are just now arriving, Garland Nixon will be joining us, and around our second or third segment of the day, we usually like to jump on early, do a nice little warm up. Garland Nixon, he's gonna bring the heat, so that's the main event.
He's coming in hot.
Yeah, he's coming in hot, so that's our main event. Make sure you stick around. Make sure you like, share with your comrades. That's the only way you guys are hearing about our streams. That's the only way people.
You notice the guests you bring to the show. You only bring fire guests because they're not going to be able to handle the Nick and CJ show. We like this. We like da. So we need somebody like the Misties, like the Jimmys, like the Garlands. We need those people. Like you notice all the same people that jive well with this. Like Margaret Kimberly jives well. That's why we always have her.
I had Nico on. We could easily did 3 hours. Easily. It just goes so naturally. Meanwhile, you see Marianne just crumble under the heat. You see Ryan crumble under the heat. She's going to crumble under the heat. It's funny when people say when we go after like Cal Kalinske, Marianne Williamson, and these NATO leftists, they say, "Oh my God, RBN, you alienating anyone? Who are your allies?" Like, what are you talking about? You see the people we have on? Like, we have Marianne Kimberly on, Garland Nixon on, Nico Alphon, Jimmy Doran. I'm working on trying to get Casey.
Not to mention the summits. Not to mention the Dr. Jill Stein.
Right, countless. It's just get the issues right. It's really easy.
It's ridiculous. Yeah,
it's really easy. RBN fucks with you if you get the issues right. If you get the issues wrong, you fuck around apologizing for not funding Nazis. There's not like, oops, sorry, we got that wrong. Like, what the hell are you thinking, boy? What are you doing? And we're gonna correct you.
That's what AOC trying to get you to buy. Is that oops? and Marianne Williamson in her campaign. I don't know if you've been listening to some of her recent stuff. She's trying to go, yeah, we're Imperialist. She's trying to do that. You can tell she's been listening to podcasts to catch the vernacular of what's happening. Because in this latest interview in the Glenn Greenwald, when we get to it, you can hear it. Oh, yeah, we want to acknowledge. And when you have two imperialists, she's trying to use the vernacular, but then to deliver the same neocon message. But anyway, we'll get to that when we get to that. I can do some announcements and then
get some announcements. I want to get to the story because I want to do it before Nixon get here. I want to do a propaganda report segment to show MSNBC meltdown over China because I cannot emphasize enough. Just a quick preview and then I'll pass to you.
That's
G
yes, sir.
Just met Putin. BRICS is expanding. Lula about to meet G, and you had Lula looking at Olaf Scholz to his face and said, "I do not agree with you guys on China." I covered that at the time, where he calls out the West for their anti-China fear-mongering, which is we got a lot of criticism of Lula. Everyone does. He's a member of the ruling class, right? But that's something he gets right. On NATO, he gets that correct. On China, he gets that correct. And that's what he was going to meet with Xi. So China greatly expanding their influence, brokered a deal between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and the establishment panicking. That's my preview. Go ahead, CJ. I don't want to spoil it too much. I'll pass to you. And then when we get to the video, because there's a lot of breakdown.
Absolutely. All right, so let's quickly get through this 45 seconds. Okay, Substack. If you notice, we're pivoting to more guests, and I think it's good because I think what we've done, Nick, we've kind of like laid out different plans in the 2 years. Maybe it was subconsciously to where we laid out a different sort of scheme, and then once we've accomplished it, we've eternally debunked the whole progressive narrative myth. So we're kind of moving on to now we want to engage with guests and have more sort of intellectual, or have conversations with intellects. Let's not say intellectual conversations, but have conversations with intellects. That's sort of what we're pivoting to, and I'm loving having guests every show, damn near having guests every show. So go ahead.
Yeah, that's the community that we cultivated of challenging the ruling class in power. Like we see the smear merchant that attack people who criticize the Democrat establishment, that criticize the empire. So we need to come together as collective, the same way that the corporate media, they all friends with each other. Like you had Jim Psaki coming on Morning Joe. Hey, how you doing, buddy? Like, that's how we should be. We should also be citizen journalists. We should come together, make each other better, smarter. And I think that's always been my long-term goal. And that's the people I'm most excited to talk to. I'm not interested in talking to politicians. I don't reach out to Ro Khanna. I'm not interested in having access to Marianne Williamson. I'd rather talk to someone like Nico. I'd rather talk to someone like Garland Nixon. I'd rather talk to people like Jimmy. I'd rather talk to serious anti-imperialists. I'd rather talk to serious activists as well. I'd rather have a conversation with Shama Sawant instead of some random bullshit artist. And we need to have a working class. We got to have a working class movement. We can't have top down where we like have hero worship over. Oh my God, Marianne Williamson, she knows Oprah, man. She can be our shortcut to the top. No, we got to have this firewall, and RBN is creating this firewall of militant anti-imperialism, militant Marxists, militant people who want to challenge the two-party duopoly. We are the post-duopoly left, and that's the people that usually the people that's on our show. The probably the biggest disagreement you have are people like Misty who said, I don't even like third parties. You know what I mean? It's not like, they're Democrats. Like, oh no, well, I think we should do something more radical with the third parties. I'm like, oh, that's great. That's all. I'm 100% with you as well. So I think that's the mindset we have, and we can't do the shit that the old left has done, where they want one foot out. They're nice with the establishment. And like, you guys not gonna make any friends. Like, okay, what kind of friends are you trying to make? We're not trying to make friends with these people. We're not trying to be in the TYT orbit. We're not trying to rub elbows with these people. We're trying to
but our militancy has been described as being obtuse. And this is what Shama Sawant says all the time. You have to understand the powers that be want everybody to fall in line. So if you're saying everybody get out of line, some people are going to be upset, and you have to be willing to and understand you're going to take incoming fire. You're being this, you're being that, you guys are being negative, you guys are doing this. Those are the people who want us to fall in line with blue or red. Pick a side, you know what I'm saying? So, and we're not falling in line. And I think that, Nick, is what is shaking up the left media sphere. The plans for Marianne Williamson have completely been affected by RBN and our friends too. I'm not just saying RBN, but people who like-minded like us. So it's great to see. But go ahead if you wanted more. I'll continue with announcements.
Yeah, go with announcements. I'll get into it.
Yeah. So here's our website. I wanted to show. Some people were saying when I put up the URL, they want to see the website. So this is the website. You have the tabs up top. About us, the members, the chapter information, media, summits, outreach, human help is what we call it. And then you can see like our story, some of our pillars, our beliefs, who we are, some pictures, our latest clips. You can always see, and this is actually it's up to date. And this is the one that was just launched this morning, our mission. Then there's also stuff like our outreach. If you wanted to go now, it does need to be updated. We need to add some more video and pictures since we've done some more stuff. But like, if you wanted to go see some of, Sabrina being out there at the Assange rally, this is Rome, different things from Jacksonville when he delivered water to Flint when he delivered water, when he cut hair, and then the library. So different things you can check out on our website. Make sure you do that. Here's our email. I'll take that down. Here's our email, info@revblack.com. Like the stream. We're up to 300 and so odd people. So let's just go right to 300 likes. Hit that like button. Get us to 300 likes. And we're gaining. It's slower than normal, but we're still gaining. Like, we're being severely suppressed, severely suppressed. And we know that, but that's not going to stop us from fighting. So keep helping us share our streams. Thank you for those that have subscribed, and we're still growing. I think we just hit 32,300, so I'll update that later. We also have memberships, $3.99. Oh, and let me shout that person out because we do have a new member that joined like right before we started. So maybe they liked us before and they've been watching. But this is Darren Avili. I think that's how you say it. Avili. Becomes a new member, and thank you, Darren, for that. And I'll go ahead with the other super chats. Abiding 71, always showing love with all of our different shows across all of our channels. So RBN is a network, and then we have different channels. Like JB has a channel, I have a channel, Nick has a channel, Sabby has a channel. We all have channels, but we're all come together to form a network, and Abiding 71 is always showing everybody across all channels love. So we appreciate that, sir. And then this one, I don't know if you saw any other super chats. This is the one I caught. As a Zen Buddhist, Garland investigates reality. A reality investigator is better than a detective. Happy for you all, Charles Austin. Thank you for that super chat, Charles. And we're very happy to have Garland, especially during this time slot, our regular Nick and CJ time slot. It's always good to get when we get guests that are able to fit our small window of a schedule, because it allows our regular guests to see us with other guests. So that's always the target. But if we can't, we can't. I'll pass it back to you, Nick. That's all of the announcements.
I'm gonna dive right into the video because I got a lot of cover. I may have to do another Nick at Night to cover some of this. I don't know if you guys saw the anti-gay bill in Uganda, which is horrific, but obviously it was inspired by U.S. imperialism and far-right evangelicals meddling in the state. But guess who's taking advantage of this? Because the Uganda gold reserves, you have liberals who are cultural imperialists that's using that as an excuse to try to put sanctions on Uganda, to get U.S. troops in Uganda. I already see insane neocons in the Democratic Party that is using Uganda's horrific anti-homosexual bill to justify intervention in Uganda. And you can condemn the anti-homosexuality bill while also condemning what's obviously happening now with cultural imperialism and Democratic Party using that as a preface. So that's another story I might cover either today or at another time. But let's get into this segment here, because this is MSNBC. So not MSNBC. This is CNN coverage of Xi Jinping and their meeting with Putin, where they united and they said, "Hey, Joe Biden, thank you for allowing it to happen. Thank you for creating the geopolitical climate that allows us to do something like this and bring countries that would otherwise never come together, people who will never make peace, like Iran and Saudi Arabia, have BRICS expand to have 15, 16 more countries seeking to apply." It was a massive show of solidarity between China and Russia. And you want to see how the Western media covers this, CJ? The panic that's in their voice is quite glorious. Let's check it out.
Visit between two powerful strategic partners is being watched around the world. For the first time since Russia invaded Ukraine, China's Xi Jinping is in Moscow meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Ukraine is, of course, expected to top the agenda of the three-day trip, with Beijing framing itself as a peacemaker. Mr. Xi says that China will work.
China framing itself as a peacemaker. You know, the country that only just brokered a peace deal between Iran and Saudi Arabia. You guys know that Bernie Sanders and progressives have been bullshitting you guys about ending the war in Yemen for the last 4 years. They only fought for it when Donald Trump was president, when there was no chance of it happening. Then Jim Crow Joe takes office, Democrats take charge of government, and all of a sudden Bernie Sanders forgets his bill. Right? So here's a stinging fact for Ro Khanna and Marianne Williamson, these insane anti-China hawks. If you guys seen both of their respective last interviews, Marianne Williamson with Glenn Greenwald, Ro Khanna with democracy now where they cannot shut the fuck up about the Chinese Communist Party. You want to know the devastating fact Bernie Sanders quote? Xi Jinping potentially end the war in Yemen before you guys did. And I repeat, the Chinese Communist Party ended the Yemen war before you guys did. That's a fact. Let's continue with the video.
With Russia to, in his words, safeguard the international order.
It is true that both of our countries share the same or similar goals. We have exerted efforts for the prosperity of our respective countries. We can cooperate and work together to achieve our goals.
The meeting comes just days after the International Criminal Court issued an arrest warrant for Vladimir Putin on war crimes charges. Just walk us through what Xi Jinping at this point needs from Russia.
This guy, watch this performance from this motherfucker. This is something else. Listen to this.
Well, Xi Jinping, I mean, by traveling to Russia just after securing this unprecedented third presidential term, he's making very clear.
They always like, oh my God, Xi Jinping, Putin has been in power for, oh my God, for how long? Oh my God, Russia and China, the dictatorship, because Putin, a popular leader in the country, have been in charge for so long. Let me ask you guys a question. How long has Nancy Pelosi been in power in the United States? What? And I have a question. What is the mechanism for us to get John Bolton, Mike Pompeo, Lloyd Austin, and Anthony Blinken out of government? What is the mechanism? We can't vote them out. Neera Tanden works for Joe Biden right now. We voted against Neera Tanden when Hillary Clinton lost.
Right.
So, but
Kamala
Neera
Harris
Tanden has a job, though. You see how we cannot vote these capitalists out of this system, but they want you to fearmonger. Oh my God, Russia and China. Their popular politicians stay in power because their power structure wants that to happen. Putin is massively popular.
How long has Wall Street been in power? How long has the insurance industry been in power? Like, people think because you're changing the mask,
yes.
What does that do? You're changing the face of the person that's steering the ship of capital. What does that do? It's the same ship. And I think Nick gives the United States the ability to say, see, we have a democracy. Yes. We change out our head of king. We change the king every so often. So you think it's a democracy and it's not. Go ahead.
And then the people who was in government then become part of media. Like George W. Bush's former press secretary. You have Jim Psaki now part of media. And then people think we're a democracy in this country. I'm gonna ask you guys a question. When has Goldman Sachs ever lost an election? Don't worry, I'll wait. How do we get rid of Steve Mnuchin's influence over government? How do we get rid of the influence of big oil and weapon? No, we're not a democracy. We are a capitalist dictatorship. But let's continue. Our guest should be arriving. I'll give him, let's say about 10, 15 minutes. Garland Nixon should be going at the end of this segment. Let's continue this.
He's sending a message
to
the West, to the world, where his priorities lie. And even though, his economic relationship with the United States and NATO is hugely important in terms of dollars, that's not Xi's priority. His priority is ideology. And he and Vladimir Putin share the belief that the world order as it has existed for the last 70 years, ensured by the United States, is a world order that needs to change.
Now I'm going to ask you guys. I know you guys want to say too. Feel free, CJ, to interrupt anytime. But I'm going to ask you guys, do you guys agree or disagree with that statement? I'm going to say that straight up. I'll play the last 7 seconds again. Do you guys just put your bias aside? Do you guys agree or disagree with the statement?
The world order as it has existed for the last 70 years, ensured by the United States, is a world order that needs to change.
Do you?
Yes. Yes. I think the answer is easily provable. What's happening in the global South?
Yes.
What's happening to Palestinians? Who's getting bombed in Somalia? Is this working? Look at the homeless population in the United States. Look at the black and indigenous and brown suppression. Look at the suppression of women. They just took away the rights of choice. But in Russia, you can get a free an abortion. Yeah. That's legal, but somehow that's the dictatorship over there.
You get paid maternity leave. They get like 180 days minimum. Zoya's Life explained that before on one of our shows. Mm-hmm. Like so in our country that forces women to go back to work after having children. What do you call it? Is that freedom? I would say that Russia's more free. Any country that got paid maternity leave, then you're more free. But CJ, yeah, any other points before I continue?
No, go ahead, sir.
He gets worse. Like, bro, we get running. You start your stride. You get start going fast. That's what these people are like, man. He's just getting started, guys. He's just getting started. So
they believe that the system of democracy, the cultural liberalism, is a disgrace, and they want to see the world aligned more the way that their countries are, where they are controlled very.
Or how about like they want a country? They want countries to be more aligned like them, not pursuing unhinged global destabilizing sanctions, destroying the Middle East by arming terrorists. So what they're doing, they're strawmanning their argument because Russia and China. If you listen to Putin speak, he's like, "Have you seen what the Americans did to Iraq? Have you seen Guantanamo? You see what they do with AFRICOM?" And that's why they never show you speaking. It's Putin calling them out for their war crimes. It's Putin, and whether you think he believes it or not, he will say stuff like this. He's like, "Bro, it's crazy what they did to George Floyd, right? You see what they're doing to black people over there? Fucking killing the shit out of them." But they won't call us authoritarian. And whether they, regardless of their political intents, they are right about our country. And that is what these people who are Western chauvinists, they hate Xi and Putin for calling out our crimes, which they have done. But sorry, let me continue.
Nick, they don't, other countries don't, like everybody here, we're the most propaganda now, because I'm putting them in perspective. I've been in other countries. They laugh at us, man. They laugh at us politically. They laugh at us politically, like, what? Y'all freaking politically stupid. They literally think that. In Germany, I was in Germany for a long time. I was in Colombia for a long time. They think we're idiots, man.
Yeah. And liberals, that's why they was embarrassed when Trump won. And meanwhile, around the world, when Trump won, they was like, yeah, of course, makes sense. That's exactly who America was like. Meanwhile, liberals, they hated Trump because they embarrassed him so much. But let's continue to be because there's so much gold here, man. Like this, so condensedly compact with propaganda. Let's continue.
Heavily by the government. And so this is a bigger issue for President Xi than just Vladimir Putin's war crimes charges in the International Criminal Court, bigger than the war in Ukraine.
Bro, you have China that literally calling out the United States for the Nord Stream bombings. You guys know that? I'm gonna show you guys that headline there later. Interested in getting Garland Nixon's thoughts on that. You have China that called out the United States for Syria. So only in this very small bubble that this guy exists in, that CNN and Morning Joe exists in, where no one knows what the United States war crimes are. So they're like, man, Xi Jinping is put in this type position because he's friends with Putin. This guy convicted of war crimes. It's like, nigga, you know what NATO is? The room full of war criminals. You're not allowed in unless you're a war criminal. Let me continue. I see how much more I can get into this. Man, it's a lot here because the other guy didn't even chime in yet.
Yeah. This is about combining the powers of these two nuclear-armed authoritarian superpowers. And using
authoritarian said a country that imprisons 1/4 of the world's prison population. So that the country that literally implements the Patriot Act, they can still detain you for no reason. Anyway, let's continue.
Authoritarian superpowers, and using that combined power to shape the course of the world order for the future. They both believe that this is their mission.
This is white people saying, damn, white people is not going to be the head at the table no more. This is a tantrum of, because that's because it feels to me that the language he's using is like he's really tiptoeing, because it's so vague in the description of
mad.
You can't tangibly get anything but a feeling. That's what I was just getting to. It's like all he's saying is like his vibes about what's happened. There's nothing tangible. And that's always when they describe in China, they're a threat. And we talk about this all the time. Like, But it's never articulated like with how they were
You know what they do,
articulating
CJ?
Russia. Go ahead.
You know what they do, CJ, and he's doing it here in this segment again. And if I have the other segment, I'm going to do later. I don't think I have time to do it, to be honest. But there's another segment where the way they paint China as evil is, oh my God, China's meeting with China meeting with Putin. China is expanding their geopolitical influence. China is expanding trade in Africa. China is doing military drills. So their criticism is that China is behaving like a country that want to that expressing their sovereignty, that want to expand their economy. And they're like, oh my God, China is so nefarious. What is China up to? Why did China want to make all these trade deals in Africa? What are they up to? I don't know. Maybe they try to make money. He ever considered that? Maybe they behaving like a fucking country. Oh my God, China meeting with their neighbor. You gotta know China, Russia's right next to China. They're like, she is meeting with Putin. What are they up to? They're so nefarious. How dare these people behave like a country? Because as you said before, there's a group of white people that see these Asians. They see Chinese people. They see Russian people meeting together, and they see a change in the geopolitical dynamic. And they believe whether they will openly admit it or not, that white people should be on top. And they see China rise, and that freaks them the fuck out. Even the people who claim to be anti-war, even the people who claim to be anti-imperialist, even they will say stuff like Tucker, even will say stuff like, yeah, I think we should have a trade deal with China. Why? Why does it hurt your ego so much for, let's say the United States is thriving, but let's say we're thriving next to China who's doing better than us. Who gives a fuck? But they were like, their mentality is we'd rather fuck everything up in order for us to be number one. Imagine a scenario where the United States wasn't ran by unhinged maniacs. The West wasn't ran by unhinged maniacs that put more emphasis on building, industry, and increasing the quality of life for people instead of war. Then the United States and China, even they had different economic philosophies, could work together and trade. But the capitalist ideology is that we cannot help any market socialist country because we don't want to show any alternative economic model working. Capitalism works by crushing their opponents. That's why they refuse to work with China. Meanwhile, China and Russia's like, go, bro, what the fuck? Do you guys know the USSR wanted to join NATO? The West is like, what? Don't you know the rules? You're supposed to be fighting. Anyway, I'm ranting too much. Anything else you want to add, CJ? I'll play a little bit more of this, and Garland should.
No, we can play some more because I'm curious to hear what they're saying about this, because we talked about how it's a complete panic about this meeting. It's a complete freak out about these two superpowers coming together, because it's like a bully seeing two bigger people saying, and it's like, man, I can't bully those two people. That's essentially what the United States is doing. But go ahead.
Yeah, so we're just still scratching the surface. It's still getting warmed up.
You know, this meeting, these 3 days, the decisions that they make, the conversations that they have, seem to be solidifying this, as they've called it, their no limits partnership. And you see Xi Jinping trying to show China's force, not only militarily and economically, but also in diplomacy.
You see what I'm talking about? Oh my God, how dare China try to show people it's a force? They were behaving like a country, and they're framing as ominous. Who are these? Oh my God, why are they increasing their relationship with their neighbor? Why are they increasing their military? See, and then people who are xenophobic and they don't even know it, they see this like, oh my God, what is China's up to? Oh my God, they're a threat to our life.
If China broke its peace in Ukraine, how the hell is the United States going to go to war with them? Explain me how they're going to sell war against the country that's saving the United States billions of dollars. How are they going to sell war to the people of the United States? That's crazy. Go ahead.
There's an article in Bloomberg. I got to pull it out. I'll pull it up here soon. That shows that, man, this peace plan by China is really fucking up the United States plan. They do have no interest in peace. Let's continue the video. There's so much gems. We only 3 minutes in. We can just play until Garland pop in. Let's keep playing.
Yeah, that's recently fine. Between Saudi Arabia and Iran, and making sure that deal, none of the official documents would be in English. This is what she has always felt is an inevitable revival and rise of China. And he,
oh my God, he wants China to rise. How dare he?
In that way. Now,
you see, how dare she want China to rise? You guys see what he's saying? You see the criticism? Xi Jinping has aspirations of China being a superpower. Of course. And I see what Jennifer's saying. That was the obvious one. Why would they're like, oh my God, China, they had their meetings and they didn't make their documents in English. What are they planning? You guys see how ridiculous this is? Meanwhile, Rokana, Marianne Williamson, just go along with this shit.
Hey, when you have done so many people wrong, and then you see those people talking, you start to feel some type of way. You go like, "What the fuck? What's going on?" It's like a guy seeing two girls he's seeing dating at the same time together. They walk in, he's like, "What kind of shit is this?" Like that's the same reaction the United States is giving. Go ahead.
Yeah, let's continue.
An embarrassing defeat in Ukraine for the West is not something that would disappoint Xi Jinping. So that is why there's growing concern that he's considering these arming of lethal weapons, ammunition, because we know that the U.S. believes that Russia might not have any serviceable ammunition before the end of.
Just making shit up, son. Just making shit up. And the United States was asked, what is the evidence that you guys have that China is sending ammunition and arms to Ukraine? Oh man, I think, and they was like, I think it's something they would do, right? It's something they would do. Oh, so you have no hard evidence? And then in a conversation where they're trying to deflect from the fact that China is a peace broker, they're now interjecting CIA talking points where they say, oh man, there's rumors that China may arm Russia and Putin. You know what we're doing with the Nazis in Western Ukraine? It's absurd on so many levels. I let it play. I let it play for a while because this is so crazy. We're not even halfway in. I let it play for like at least a minute. This is so crazy.
That's something that China can help them with,
it's
along
so ridiculous.
with microchips and other types of weapons that could really change the course for Russian soldiers on the battlefield. So what happens over the next few days of discussion, Zane, is going to have huge ramifications for the war in Ukraine and beyond.
We'll see what happens. I'm sure you'll be watching very, very closely. Will Ripley live for us there. Thank you so much. And it's time now for the exchange and a conversation with Yun Sun. She's a senior fellow and co-director for China.
And yeah, this part,
Washington.
we don't have time to get through this, but I swear to God, this part is so infuriating. Look who they brought on.
I was just about to say, if you think it's a coincidence that the guest looks the way she does, it's not. This is what the ruling class has understood. Oh, so get some people who look like them and just have them say the same thing and pay them off pretty good. That's all they do. And do you want to play? I see Garland in the back. Yeah, go ahead.
Yun Sun. And there's countless segments like this. And this is as bad as anything the right wing does. Whenever they got to justify imperialism in Africa, they're going to bring the biggest coup they can find to join. Hey, Garland, I see you, brother. Give us a thumbs up when you're ready. I introduce you here in a second. There you go, brother. But they all, and then when it comes to China, the liberal media brings on the most neocon Chinese, Southeast Asian person they can find to be the anti-China hawk. And I'm going to just play just a little bit what she says, and then I'm going to get Garland Nixon in. I'm going to let it play uninterrupted because I think it would speak volumes, and then we introduce Garland in here. Because there's no way this person that they bring on is representative of the East Asian community. No way at all. So I'll just let it play, and after we play out, we bring Garland in.
Director for China at the Stimson Center, a Washington think tank. Thank you so much for being with us. Just walk us through at this point why you think Russia needs China and vice versa.
Thank you very much for having me. I think the reason why Russia needs China at this point is quite clear. Russia has been under severe international sanctions since the beginning of the war, and its economic partners on the international market has become increasingly limited, and its source of foreign funding, especially investment, has also become limited. China is Russia's largest neighbor, and China also shares this anti-U.S. agenda with
anti-U.S. agenda.
So evidently, China has appeared or emerged as one of the few partners that Russia can still rely on in this precarious condition. Then from the Chinese perspective, I think the most important consideration remains to be geopolitics. And by geopolitics, the Chinese would mean, well, the great power competition or the strategic competition with the United States. No matter what, and regardless of the result of the war in Ukraine, China sees Russia as a partner or as a partner that shares the same vision about the need to counter the US hegemony in the world. So that geopolitical instinct really dictates China's behavior at this point.
So does China's sort of cozying up to Russia, how much does it affect China's relationship with its European trading partners, do you think?
I think it does affect China's relationship with Europe, not only in terms of trade, but also in terms of the diplomacy and also in terms of the political.
The United States, well, Xi Jinping meeting with Russia does not affect their status with Europe. What affects the status with Europe is the Biden administration unhinged policy to continue to escalate and demonize China. China does not want this. They're playing defensive. So last part now, I'll get Garland in.
Optics and the European concern about China aligning itself with Russia and the implications it would have for the war in Ukraine, which is why I think the Chinese are trying to frame itself or present China as a peace broker instead of a Russia accomplice through this trip. So we saw that China made the proposal on the peace settlement of the Ukraine crisis about a month ago. And then earlier in March, China also facilitated the peace deal between Iran and Saudi. So all these are giving the international community, I would say, an illusion that China is now going to emerge as a great mediator between Russia and Ukraine, which I don't think is the primary goal of this trip. And I don't think it is within China's capacity to mediate the peace for the Ukraine war.
So she goes on and continue to be the mouthpiece for anti-China propaganda. And there much to say on that, but I want to take the time to bring in our guest. I appreciate you for making time with us. Garland Nixon, an amazing reporter, great anti-imperialist journalist. Thank you for joining us on RBN. Garland Nixon.
Hey, thanks for bringing me in.
I haven't had the chance to meet you before, Garland. So good to meet you. I've watched a lot of your content, and I don't know if you have a name for people that follow you, but we have a bunch of people in the comments already like waiting to hear you. Do you have like a name for your followers, the Garland Knights or something like that? Or I don't know.
I don't know. That kind of scares me.
I don't know name, but we have some people that love you in the comments. Just wanted to shout that out. Go ahead.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I want to get a take on this because I'm showing the unhinged anti-China propaganda that's been going on in the West because China wants to broker a peace deal in Russia. And then I want to get your take on this article in Bloomberg and your take on the West strategy in Ukraine in general. Look at this. This is from Bloomberg. The United States fear a war-weary world may embrace China's Ukraine peace bid. So the United States fear the world wants peace. That's the position the United States is officially endorsing. And now you have this, which to me points why they did this. You had Ukraine says the ICC arrest warrant means no negotiation with Putin. Of course. So they have this ICC charge against Putin, and now Ukraine is saying, oh, well, because of this ICC charge, we can't pursue peace with Putin. And now you have the Biden administration saying, oh, we got to follow the lead of Ukraine. So that's a broad toss-up. But I'm very interested in your thoughts on the West strategy and their reaction to the Chinese peace deal. Once again, welcome to RBN, Garland.
Thank you. Well, here's the thing. It's part of this grand strategy. We all know that, you cannot separate the Ukraine conflict from this whole hegemonic desire to rule the world. And part of it is we got to start with Russia and we've got to take Russia apart. And once we control Russia, then we can move on to China. It's really sick and twisted. But the bottom line it is we cannot have peace in Ukraine, because if that happens, then we can't keep Russia in Ukraine and continue to hopefully destabilize Russia. It shows the kind of the barbarity of U.S. foreign policy in that we've got this brutal conflict going on with Ukrainians dying and Russians dying and people suffering all over the place. And the U.S. is simply, as part of our strategy, this is working out well for us. It is a sociopathic way of looking at the world to say it works out well for our overall strategy for lots of people to die and suffer, and for the economy of the EU to fall apart. All of that is great as far as these crazy neocons are concerned.
Yeah, well said. This is the comment from Zelensky in response to DeSantis, because DeSantis was forced to walk back. His comments were, he said this is a territorial dispute. And after that, you had many people in the Republican establishment that pushed back on him. And this shows the mindset that comes from Ukraine, because they now using the ICC charge on Vladimir Putin and say we will never negotiate with peace. Now let's use that logic, right? So if you're gonna use that logic, right, that means there's no negotiation with the United States, because they have Jim Crow Joe on top. They had Anthony Blinken. They have all the Iraq war criminals. So they keep making up these non-starters that they know will never happen in order to engage with war. So I don't know how well you can see this, but I'll read this out. This is Zelensky's original response to DeSantis that showed their mindset. It's a Ukrainian President Zelensky didn't want to appeal to the hearts of Americans, in other words, to their heads. This was his answer. Help us fight them here. Help us defeat them here, and you won't have to fight them elsewhere. So the establishment keep framing the Ukraine war as, if we don't defeat Russia here, they somehow gonna invade Poland next. They're gonna invade France next, which contradicts their original statement, because they say, oh my God, the Ukrainian war is an example of Russian forces being weak. If this is an example of Russian forces being weak, why are we afraid of them taking over the world then?
Well, and then one day on a Monday, Russia can't possibly defeat Ukraine because they're so weak, and they're down to fighting with shovels, and they're losing 1,000 men an hour. The next day, Russia's the most powerful army in the world, and they're going to overrun all of Europe, and they'll be landing on the shores of Massachusetts before a week is out. The bottom line is this: that's imperialism. It's not rational. So on any given day, whatever story you need, whatever lie, whatever you need to say on a given Tuesday, and if you change it on Monday, it doesn't apply to me today, it does apply to me. It's the irrationality of the imperialism. You have to lie to your people first and foremost. When they talk about this information war, who is the information war against? It's against the people of the United States, because the truth is, if the people understood this, they would know that it is not in their best interest, and they wouldn't support it. So it's just the constant lies of us, the manipulations of any and everything they have to do on any given day to try to get us frightened, afraid, whatever. And the thing about DeSantis is this: to me, he's Joe Biden in that he was, I'm all for Ukraine. And then Trump comes out and says, hey, I'm not much on Ukraine. The next day, DeSantis, come to think of it, that's not the war we really need to fight. We need to go over to China. That's where we need to go. So realistically, if you say we don't need to go to war with this nuclear superpower, we need to go to war with that nuclear superpower, should we stand up and clap and say this guy's the second coming of Gandhi? None of it makes sense.
Yeah, and the same right wingers, and I just did a segment on Marjorie Taylor Greene saying we need to send our troops to Mexico. So they don't want to go to war with Ukraine, but they want to invade Mexico to fight the cartels, and they want to send troops to invade Haiti. There was a conversation with John Kirby on Morning Joe where they were just nonchalantly talking about invading Haiti. But tell us more how that country should not negotiate and work with Putin because of war crimes, as our country is endorsing invading countries that are next to us. Go ahead, Garland.
Let's not forget, there's any number of things you can look up. You can look up something called Operation Baby Lift. Look that up from the Vietnamese War, which was the U.S. taking children out of Vietnam. Look up in Afghanistan. There are any number of articles. I've shared them online where the U.S. There was a particular article on CNN where it said the U.S. is taking children and orphans out of Afghanistan, and many of them are crying themselves to sleep. They don't know if they'll ever see their parents again. So they didn't have anything. And the real truth about this so-called ICC claim, where it was basically people, you notice one thing: they didn't interview any of the parents or talk to anybody. Why? Because it was a war zone, and people were migrating out of a war zone into the closest place, which was Russia. And guess what? They were Russian-speaking people, but they didn't get any in depth because, okay, we're going after Russia for a war crime. You notice they didn't say invading an independent sovereign nation. Well, A, Ukraine's not independent and sovereign. But if it was, U.S. ain't going after nobody for that. You know, they couldn't go after Russia for anything, even if they had to make it up regarding a real war crime, because it would simply bounce back and everybody would say, but what about the time you did this? So they had to come up with some cockamamie scheme about removing children from Ukraine. And you notice nobody really understands what they mean. It's like you took children out of Ukraine. Okay, so how is that a war crime? Did they want to go? Did they not want to go? Did they disappear?
Yeah,
What's the details on that?
A lot of them,
right? You don't need to know the details.
I'm not gonna say all of them. I'm not gonna say all of them, but a lot of them was orphaned by the Kiev regime, by the Azov Battalion, in the Donbass in eastern Ukraine. So they was adopted. They was adopted because obviously, as we explained before, Russia and Ukraine, they had close cultural ties. A lot of these people was pro-Russia, so these people adopted them. And then they said, oh my God, Russia kidnapping schemes. Once again, the same thing they said to Syria, the same thing they said in Afghanistan as well. But sorry, girl, I want you to finish your thought as well.
No. You're exactly where I was going. It was just a political scheme, and the timing tells you everything. So Putin and Xi are going to meet next Tuesday, and they're like, man, we don't have anything. How can we throw a monkey wrench in that? I know. Let's go to the ICC. Now, I'm sure somebody said, well, but we're not members of the ICC. Neither is Russia. Neither is hardly any of our allies. They went to the to the UN Security Council. That's one way you can take a case to the ICC. And guess what? The UN Security Council wouldn't touch it. So they're like, all right, well, we'll just throw it out there and make it up. And then we'll just pretend like it's a valid claim. It was obviously something to thwart the meeting between the two of them and to say, oh my gosh, a horrible thing could happen. We could have peace and needlessly save hundreds of thousands of lives. U.S. ain't for that. And right now, the truth is this. They don't know what to do. They got a tiger by the tail and they can't let go. They're in this Ukraine thing. They're looking at it and they're like, well, it looks like we're going to lose this and we hadn't planned for that. We're running out of ammo. They don't know what to do. They're just kind of holding on, hoping something happens in their favor. And hope ain't a plan. Hope's what you do when your plan don't work.
Yeah, now they're saying that they're going to use the ICC charge to arrest Putin. And I want to show you guys this. I want to show you this quote, and then you also can speak on Africa's resistance to this. And I pass to CJ here soon as well, because I saw this earlier today and I thought this was interesting. This is South Africa economic freedom fighters leader. ICC Putin is welcome here, and no one is going to arrest Putin. We don't want ICC's hypocrisy to apply here in our country. President Putin is welcome. We know our friends. We know the people who liberated us. So when they do this ICC charge, I was actually extremely happy because everyone knows the hypocrisy. Africa knows what happened. The people in the global south knows what happened. People in China knows. And when they first recommended war crime charges to Russia months ago, you had a representative from the Cuba delegation that said, we do not support this because the West is weaponizing human rights and they weaponizing war crimes, and we cannot create a precedent where the United States can label one person war crime while they're protecting people like Israel and themselves. And that is what Africa is seeing. I think this is backfired. So I want you to talk on this, and then I'll switch the subject on Africa's general resistance to the Ukraine war. What are your thoughts on that and the response to their messaging, Garland? We'll take that on.
Because Africa sees this, and most of the world does not support the United States. Why? Because they view this conflict through the context of history. If you look at it through the context of history, and you're in Africa, and it's the U.S. and the colonial powers, the people that have been robbing you blind for literal centuries, and now all of a sudden they're going to tell you the imperial powers are now, you should side with us against Russia. And who was the major anti-imperialist force? Who had colleges? Right now, go to Angola, go to any number of African countries, and you will find that the leaders in their military, the heads of their navies, etc., all went to Soviet military academies, which right now there are Russian military academies where there are lots of Africans over there going to school for free. So they're like, when the United States when we were fighting against England or Belgium or whoever for our freedom, the Russians were the ones that were arming us. The Russians, the ones that were giving us money, that were giving us uniform. And now we're supposed to take sides with the people that we had to fight against for our freedom. That's not going to happen. And so they understand the issue of imperialism, and they understand the context of history. And that's what this is really about.
Well, so I'm gonna read the super chat and then I'll pass to you, CJ, if you have anything you want to ask. I also want to bring up the French protest that's going on. Just a preview to my next question, but I'm gonna get to this $5 super chat. Thank you for that. Esoteric teachings. What part of Ukraine will BlackRock own after Russia takes the entire country to avoid having to fight U.S. NATO all over again? Thanks, Garland, RBN. Thank you for $5 super chat. There was no one from Jay. Let me see if I can pull that up. I saw that one earlier. I'm gonna read. This is friend of the show. You guys saw my Nick and Night not too long ago as well. Ukraine's decision to use DUMO is, in my opinion, a subtle admission of defeat, indicating that they know they will lose territory to Russia. However, Ukraine just wants to go radioactive, scorched earth, so the land is unusable. So I saw this story, which is funny. I don't know. Actually, I think I screenshot it on my Twitter. I was gonna bring this up because remember the story about the West sending tanks to Ukraine, and then everyone make a big deal like, "Oh my God, this is gonna help their offensive." Meanwhile, everyone with common sense was like, "How long is it gonna take you for you to make state-of-the-art tanks and send them there?" So now apparently they're canceling their plan of having state-of-the-art tanks that's supposed to be on. Here it is. This is I'm gonna show you guys just real quick, and if we get to the next part of this. This is funny to me. So it's a U.S. This is how they reported it. U.S. speeds up Abrams tank delivery to Ukraine war zone. Then when I looked into it, they speed up the delivery because they are opting to send refurbished older models that could be ready faster, and that canceled the original plan, which was to send state-of-the-art, newer Abrams tanks. So the question was, even with the new tanks, how was that going to change the war? But now instead they're saying them older models that still won't be ready before the end of the year. There's so many things that they're telling you. But go ahead, Garland, if you want to add to that.
A couple of things on the tanks. I'd read into that closely. Number one, when they said they were going to send the newer tanks, what they said was they're on order. And we've got some other countries who have to be ordered first and after that. In other words, a couple of years from now, when there's no such thing as Ukraine. In other words, we're going to say we're going to send them tanks. Exactly. They literally said, but we've got other countries that's got to get them first. So whenever they get built, now it's okay. We got some old tanks, we'll fix up. But here's the bottom line. It's not like if you're trained to drive a tank, a particular tank, and it's totally different and it's self-loading and it's all this stuff, right? That now they can take you out, stick you in a tank that you've never trained in. One tank has 3 people, one total different electronic systems, operating systems, everything's different. And they're going to stick you in this tank and you're going to be perfectly proficient with it. And you're going to go out with no air cover against the other tanks. Let's not forget, you know why they're sending tanks? Because Ukraine started with 3,000 tanks and they're just about out of tanks. The reality is pretty much all their tanks have been blown to smithereens. Now they're going to send them more tanks, fewer tanks, various kinds. Here we'll give you this kind of tank and that kind of tank, and we'll teach you a couple days how to use it, and you are going to go in there and get blown up. You barely know how to use the tank. The other thing is this. At one point in my life, I was a hovercraft operator. Hovercraft has been compared to hovercrafts, tanks, helicopters, things of that nature. And I was also an engineer. I worked on them. And one of the sayings that we had about hovercrafts was there's always something broke. It's just a matter of finding it, right? When you have something like a tank, every time you go out and use it, when you come back, man, massive amounts of maintenance. Things are loose. They got to be tightened up. Things are bolts because of the vibrations have backed out. Man, you need lots of maintenance. You can use them like a lot of things like that. For every 2 hours of use, it takes 4 hours of maintenance, literally. So the idea that you can throw these tanks out in the middle of the battlefield 1,000 miles from anywhere, and they're going to go out there. How are you going to continue the refueling for them? How are you going to have the supply lines of something that literally M1 tanks get gallons per mile, not miles per gallon? It's absurd that you can just throw a bunch of tanks. This is propaganda for people that don't understand the reality of this kind of hardware and what it takes on a battlefield and the level of training it takes to use it effectively. If you put soldiers in that stuff, they're just gonna get out there and get themselves killed. They're sitting ducks in those things if they did it. And I would argue most of the stuff will never even get there. That's for us.
Yeah,
So
I
we
know
can
this
feel
sound
like
obvious.
they're still sending stuff. Huh?
I'll pass you, CJ. I know you want to chime in, but I know this sounds obvious after listening to Garland's explanation. But the reason why the explanation is so important, because I watched countless segments, saw countless tweets from liberal blue check journalists where they was propagandizing people, where they were saying, this is a game changer. And they admitted everything you said here. And if you separate yourself from the propaganda, like I know you guys, a lot of you guys do, it sounds obvious, but there are liberals that watch this shit that are like, yes, those 40 tanks is about to cause an offensive. It's over. Thank God for the tanks. They had protests where there was a pro-Ukrainian protest. Well, they was like, come on, Biden, send the tanks. Send the tanks. It's like, these people really thought that was going to be game changer. But anyway, go ahead, CJ. I'll pass
Yeah,
to you.
so I'm going to ask you, Garland, about this tweet. And Nick, you kind of alluded to this was something you were going to go to anyway, but this is what I was going to ask him about. But first, to just speak on the tanks, I think, Garland, it speaks to their concept or their idea of how long this war is going to be. Because if the tank is not going to be ready for another year, 2 years, or whenever it's going to be, that's them acknowledging this needs to go on at least the amount of time it's going to take the tank to get there. Could you imagine they broker peace in 3 months and then they still got tanks on back order? Like, what are they going to do? You think weapons manufacturers give refunds or something? Like, could you speak to how these weapons that are supposed to be on back order, how it really speaks to when you're talking about a year, 2 year, the length of time of the expectation of the people that want to keep this going?
Well, you know, it's funny you say that because there are contradictions. Because recently a lot have come out that they've said, you know, we're going to be running out of there are little articles that said, you know, this summer we cannot continue to maintain the level of ammunition that's being expended by Ukraine. And by the summer, we're going to be kind of running out of ammunition. There's been articles where they've said, well, Ukraine has to do a big offensive in the spring, because if they don't, we're going to be running out of ammunition and things to support them. Basically, they're realizing and admitting that the logistics is just a portion of the war, that they're going to be unable to maintain it. So they're saying, oh, we're going to go on for years, 12 years, 100 years. But then you read between the lines and you see these articles and you see these generals admitting this can't go on but so much longer because we don't have the logistics to continue. And they're losing tanks and they're losing things far faster than we can replace them. And at some point, they're going to be standing there out of ammo. So they would love for this thing to go on, you know, ad infinitum. But the realization is they know that there's they're past the tipping point and they're trying to hold on now. And they're coming up to a point probably by the summer, and the latest the fall, but probably this summer, things are going to be very, very difficult to maintain it. And my prediction is at some point, you're going to get a collapse. You're going to get a military and political collapse in Ukraine. And at that point, things are going to fall apart. And my argument, my perspective is I think Russia will at that point impose their will, that they won't. They'll say, why should we negotiate? Why should I negotiate if you're laying on the ground and I'm punching you in the face? I ain't negotiating. I'm winning the fight.
I agree. Let me read this tweet you put out. And this is one of a banger right here. France is tipping into complete revolution. Soon there will be no way back from this. You gotta love the French people. Neoliberalism may die in France. And there's 2 points I want to have you speak on. It's funny because Americans used to always joke how French were soft. They used to have these past jokes. French, what are you, French? Like to make them like they're soft, but yet they're doing this. But can you speak to what do you mean by neoliberalism could possibly die in France? Could you speak to what that means?
Well, one of the things that's happened here, if you look at this, one of the things that was obvious was Emmanuel Macron was taking an action that he didn't have the votes in Parliament. The French people, 2 out of every French people before it happened, 2 out of every 3 French people opposed. Upwards of 70% of the French people opposed the changes that he was making with their pensions. He didn't have the votes in Parliament, so that you have to ask the question: Who was asking him to do this? It was obviously coming from the EU. It was obviously coming from outside of his country. The EU is saying, we need you to do this. And he was like, okay. So that's this neoliberal concept where you get rid of democracy and you put together this EU group, this EU non-democratic group that wasn't voted in, and they can impose non-democratic rules on any given country within their federation, as it were. And that's a big part of an important part of neoliberalism. Trade deals and stuff always do that. You know, they make some court outside of the country that you can't sue them because they're not part of your country. Well, I think what's going on is the French people are, they didn't expect the French people to go to this extent. But when I say this, they're tipping into revolution. It's getting to the point where the citizens are no longer manageable. You know, where now what happens if you say, I'm in charge of this country, and the people won't go to work, they won't listen to you, they will no longer do what they're told. You don't have a country anymore. That's total revolution. And they say, there's more of us than there are you. We ain't listening. We're not doing it anymore. We want a new government. At some point, the government falls because it's not a country anymore. It's fallen into anarchy, and they're on the edge of France getting there. And if France gets there, that means that the people can then impose the government that they want, that the people can say, we want snap elections and we want it done the way we want, and they can vote in the people that they want in. At that point, whoever that government is, number one, may likely be somebody different, and it could be somebody that doesn't listen to the EU. Somebody that says, I'm listening to France. Now, all of a sudden, there's huge problems with the EU and the US. What happens when they say, Germany, we want you to screw over your people? Sure. Italy, we want you to screw over your people. No problem. France, we ain't doing it. If one link in the chain goes, guess what? The people in Italy are going to start saying, hey, wait a minute. The French did this. And now they forced leadership. And now those people are listening to us. You know what? That's how you get it done. It only takes one to tip the scale of revolution, and they're on that edge there in France. And if that happens, I think at that point there's going to be big problems in Europe for the ruling elite. They're just totally going to be discredited, and they won't be able to manage the people anymore. It's interesting, isn't it interesting that this is where the French Revolution happened? You know, Zhou Enlai once said when they asked him, what do you think is the outcome of the French? This was like in the 1970s or 80s, and they said, "What do you think about the outcome of the French Revolution?" And he said, "It's too early to tell," which tells you how the Chinese think. But isn't it interesting how when you look at things through a historical context, that as much as the France has gone along with neoliberalism, all when it came down to it, the country that had that history of revolution was the one that said, "We will revolt against these people and we'll push back." And as I said, I think Europe also, it's like dry tinder, right? That's what it was here. Dry tinder. It only takes a spark to light the whole forest up. And I think that's what they're on the edge of here.
Yeah, this
beautiful.
is
I'll pass it back to you, Nick. Go ahead.
Beautiful. Yeah, feel free to chime in as well, CJ. This is a great tweet from our friend Zinkis. Make sure you guys check out the show that he was on this past Monday. This is a funny tweet. It said, massive anti-Putin protests in Russia. Russia police goons attacking peaceful protesters with clubs, beating them in the head and the back. The threads are unraveling for the regime. That's what they will tell you on MSNBC. No, that's France. This is France instead.
You know what's great about
always with the great tweets, but Garland, I always thought it was funny because if you saw the narrative that came from liberal journals and the MSNBC, CNN, echo chamber, Putin made a giant miscalculation after invading Ukraine. He isolated himself from the geopolitical community, and now his people are upset and they're going to rise in protest. Meanwhile, you got massive protests in France. You have Emmanuel Macron, who lost his majority before this. You have the UK, who cannot keep a damn prime minister to change their damn life. The United States Congress, who floats around an approval rating around 25%. Joe Biden, historically unpopular. You got European neoliberalism that is crumbling. But they tell us that Russia has crumbled geopolitically. So I want you to speak on this. And I have one last thing we can get you out here soon. Like the overall sales strategy that came from the Biden administration, the West, NATO, the Boris Johnson wing of the UK, that destroyed their standing on the geopolitical world stage. They still believe that they're powerful, even though you got people in France, people in Germany, people in the UK that are starting to protest and had enough of this. So, do you want to speak on that? Any other you want to add to that?
Yeah, you're on the money with that. And here's why. Because, my dad used to have a saying, children don't listen, they watch and learn, right? And not comparing the rest of the world with children, but here's the bottom line. Tony Blinken is running around saying we've got a rules-based order that we've got to maintain, right? We got to maintain this order, right? And it's rules-based. Well, the truth is people know what it is, right? But it implies order, doesn't it? It implies some level of order. It implies, look, we're going to have a nice order and you should be a part of this so things will be orderly. Well, right now, it looks like a rules-based disorder. Right now, people are looking and they're like, I'm looking at France. That looks like that zombie movie, World War Z. Where's Brad Pitt? Is Brad Pitt running down the street getting chased by zombies? Because that's what it looks like to me. And people are, so now, from the perspective of Joe Biden having his democracies versus autocracies summits and all this kind of crap. How do you make the argument to the world with what they're seeing on these videos? This is the order. Don't worry about Russia and China. Last time I saw it, they weren't running through the streets like madmen and zombies in Beijing, in Lagos, in Riyadh, and on and on. You go around the global South. And the only time you see this is when they're protesting against imperialism. But this is the rules-based order. So the world's looking now at Tony Blinken and Joe Biden and saying, if that's your rules-based order, if that's your democracy versus autocracy, no, thank you. We don't want any of that.
Well said. Last thing I want to ask you about, and then we can get you out here, Garland, is your general opinion, because Bernie Sanders was asked about the Ukraine war, and he said, I haven't been paying attention to it. I support the president on that, even though he supported every single military budget. And despite all our criticism that we have of Lula, at least Lula had been critical of the Ukraine crisis. So what has been your take? Like, you had these people who pretend it was anti-war, people who pretend they're progressives, and I call them the NATO left, because not only just the politicians, it's the people who apologize for them, people who lie and pretend that they support the Ukrainian people, even though they're supporting just the Western regime of Ukraine. So what do you make of like this new faction? I don't know if it's ever been new, actually. Maybe it's always been a thing where these progressives are essentially tools of the empire. Like, what are your opinion on the NATO left, and how can we can resist these people who leading young people and people who consider themselves socialists into the empire's grasp? What your overall take on that, Garland?
Well, I think one of the things that happened, in the same way that Kamala Harris went to Brussels and she said to the global South, effectively, you're either with us or against us. There's no fence sitting, blah, blah, blah. You have to join us or whatever, the terrorists or, whoever, that kind of crap. I think to some extent, that's what was informally put to the squads and the Bernie Sanders, et cetera. You got to make a decision. Either you're going to play in the sandbox with the imperialists, with the warmongers, with the neocons, or you're on your way out. You can't stay here any longer. And obviously they made their decision. It's funny because you look at that and you realize that these people have fully decoupled from their constituents. They can't even have a conversation with anybody in their district who disagrees with them. You'll see Bernie Sanders, you'll see AOC, you'll see some of these other people, these Black or Latino people, and they're in their district. And one of the people, you see these videos, somebody in their district will say, my name's Jose, my name's Tyrone, whatever, right? I'm in your district. I have a question or a statement. I'm opposed to the Ukraine war, Nazis, or whatever they say. What do you have to say about this? And they'll shuffle them out of the room. Oh, who pays you? You must be paid by somebody. Oh, no, they will panic.
Yeah.
And they won't answer them, and the people will shuffle them. They don't have an answer. They got to run. And here's the truth. The reason they're running, because they do have an answer. And they know that they can't give the answer that they have. And so they are now so decoupled from their own constituency, they can't even have a discussion with people in their district that have a right to confront them and say, I disagree with them. that have a right to you want my vote. I have a right to come to you and say I have a problem with your positions. Please answer my position, and they'll get quiet and literally leave the room. They are no part of the electorate, of the working class, of the proletariat anymore. They have now taken their position with the ruling elite, and that's the way I see it.
I don't know if you saw that video where Rashida Tlaib was called out by, as you said, her constituent about the Nord Stream bombing. And the most recent update is Say Hirsch published an update where it showed Olaf Scholz from Germany worked together with the Biden administration to suppress data that showed the United States is involved. So you got all this reporting, and not even just Say Hirsch's reporting, just the obvious common sense that the United States has done the Nord Stream bombing. Rashida Tlaib get called out for it, and like, can you comment on this? Like, what do you have to say about this government? She's like, no, I don't want to take the question. Don't even answer. Just don't take it. So you want to take anything you want to add to that, Garland?
Yeah, it's simple. She can't answer it because everybody in the room knows the answer. You know, it's not an elephant in the room. It's the blue whale in the telephone booth. You know what I mean? Everybody in the room knows who did it. She knows who did it, but she's got a choice. If she were to come out and say, yeah, we know Joe Biden did it, it's kind of obvious, her career's over. And she's weighing the interest of telling the truth, the interest of being on the side of truth and justice versus the interest of maintaining my career. You know what? I have one more thing. I'll tell you what it reminds me of. A couple months back, remember, the Republicans took over and they were whining all over the place saying, we lost our positions on these important committees. They're throwing us off these committees. And I was like, people can't afford to eat. People can't put a roof over their heads. Their schools are falling apart, and we're supposed to whine because you lost your cushy little position. You're in a Congress, and when somebody come to you and say, I got a problem with my family, I got a problem with my health care, I got a problem with my roads, my infrastructure, you got no answers for them. And the best you can do is whine to us, and we're supposed to be, what are we supposed to be, out protesting or something because you lost your cushy little position on a committee? That's how separated they are mentally, emotionally from us. They don't even know we exist anymore. We're supposed, you know what, come to think of it, we're the ones that are supposed to be fighting for them to keep their positions on these cushy little committees instead of them doing something for us. I guess we're supposed to take to the street now because they lost their cushy positions.
That's perfectly saying. That's like the professional managerial class.
That's what they really believe. That's what they really believe too.
Yeah, they want us in the streets. They want us to be upset over January 6th. So you can spend so many things. They want us to be up in arms about TikTok and China. So there's so many examples of that, Garland. But I appreciate your time. I'm gonna give you last thoughts. Like, where can they find you? Any general last thoughts you want to send us, and also make sure you plug yourself. It's always fun having you on. Thank you for making time.
Absolutely.
No, thank you very much, and keep up the good work. You know, I watch you guys' content, and you know, I advise everybody to watch your content, keep up with it. It's great stuff. So, you know, I appreciate you giving me the opportunity on. And oftentimes, though, I'm not commenting on, you know, I'm lurking in the background, you know, watching your live stuff anyway. Yeah,
absolutely. You do amazing work as well. That's why I appreciate your kind comments. Make sure you guys check out Garland Nixon. I appreciate you joining us. I want to pop you out. Man,
thank you, Garland.
As always. CJ, I'll pass to you any additional comments, but make sure you guys check out Garland. Once again, we had Garland today, Nico Wednesday, we had Professor Zenkis on Monday, we had Jimmy the week before that.
Saturday before that.
Yes. So, man, we on fire right now. Make sure you guys like, share, subscribe.
Yeah,
I got a fat guest list. I mean, we're gonna keep doing it hard like this. So make sure you guys.
I'll do some announcements, and as we prepare for another segment, I'll do announcements. But yeah, shout out some guest ideas. Put them in the comments. I'll toss them up during this announcement segment. But if you like interviews like the one we just did with Garland Nixon, make sure you hit that like button. We got 650 odd people. Got up to that. So make sure we have about 600 likes. Hit that like button, everybody. Also, if you want to know when we have guests like this in the future, because we don't always do a Nick and CJ show on a Friday. So you got to get on our Substack, get on that list, and we'll send those notifications when we go live, when we have special guests. It's always good to be on there. Also, shout out to all the new members. I think we have 1 or 2 join today. $3.99, or you can go to Patreon if you can't afford $3.99. You want to pay $2 Patreon, you can pay less than that if you're able to contribute. Is always good. And always, I forgot to shout this out. Forgot to shout this out last time. RBN labor fundraiser, goal is 1,000. Venmo Revolutionary Blackout, and then GoFundMe. I've been telling people to email me. Unless you know it off the top of your head, they can email us, and then I'll email them because I don't know off the top of my head. But if you want to use GoFundMe, just email us, and we will email you that GoFundMe account because I don't know it off the top of my head. Now, the segment I was gonna do is probably the same you was gonna do, was the Glenn Greenwald. I don't know if that's the one you wanted to do next. Unless you had something else, we can do yours and then do the Greenwald.
I actually planned for 90 minutes today because I actually
you got to take off. Okay.
But I can do a short segment. If it's cool with you, we can save the Glenn Marianne for maybe next one so we can analyze it.
Yeah, for sure.
Do you have I can stay for a shorter one. I don't have any other segments, but I can stay for like a shorter one. You have, CJ.
Yeah. So let me finish the announcements. I do have a shorter one. Let me bring it up here. Because it's more of a reaction, and you may have seen this, and it's Aaron Mate was actually at the UN Security Council.
Oh yeah, I'm glad you pulled this up. Yeah, this is a good one.
Yeah, so it's a short.
I haven't dived into it yet, but this is a good one. Go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, it's just to kind of hear what he's saying and then get a reaction. It's not really much more than that. So this is the shorter segment that'll kind of send us off, and we'll bring you the Marianne Williamson segment in another stream. Whenever we.
Yeah.
Let me set it up first before I just go right in.
I don't want to short-change that segment, so we can do
right.
That.
No, because it's a lot. It's a lot.
Because I already dropped hints on this. I already dropped a few hints because her China rhetoric in that interview is unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And Ro Khanna, it's funny, back to back. He did an interview with Democracy Now! That's why I want to do a stream where we may do both videos back to back because Ro Khanna and Marianne Williamson is being trained the same thing by who? Matt Duss got these motherfuckers trained. Both of them sound unhinged. It's unhinged Chinese Communist Party nonsense. So I want to cover that in depth. Literally, I want to show both those interviews. So definitely probably our next Nick and CJ show. But I'll pass it back to you because it's crazy. But go ahead, CJ.
Yeah, no, because because that's at least that's probably going to be like a 30-40 minute segment.
Yeah,
there's so much to cover. In that interview, I watched it too when you sent me the link. I watched it. So here, now I backed it up a little bit just to get a little bit of perspective of why he was there. This is what he tweeted out. I'll be speaking today at 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. my time, to members of UN Security Council about the OPC's cover-up scandal in its probe of the alleged chemical attack in Syria. And that's Douma, Syria. And then he puts the link there where you can go to see it. And then, of course, Max shouted that out just so if you wanted to. So let's just listen to what he's saying here. And Max says in the caption, testifying right now before the UN Council, UN Security Council about the OPCW's Douma cover-up scandal. Aaron wonders why U.S., UK, French reps refuse to answer his questions and demolish the UK's rep shoddy sourcing on chemical attack symptoms. So let's listen. If you want to stop it, we're probably listening to about half of it right here.
But I just want to note the fact that we have member states who do not contest the documented fact that the Douma findings were suppressed, but yet they oppose any action to address this suppression. And on that note, I'll also point out that I asked a question of these delegations, the US, UK, and France. I mistakenly asked Germany, but they're not here. Whether or not they will support the call of distinguished diplomats like the first Director General of the OPCW, Jose Bustani, and former senior UN official, Hans von Sponek, to simply have the OPCW meet with all of the original members of the Douma team and let them, not just the two dissenting inspectors, but all the original members of the Douma team, let them discuss their concerns and let them put forth the evidence that was suppressed. I never got an answer back to that question, which I've now asked several times. What I did get from the representative of UK was a substantive challenge on one issue, which I appreciate him raising. Unfortunately, he has left the room, so he's not here anymore to hear my response, which is unfortunate because I think he could benefit from hearing my answer. Now, he pointed out that the IIT report, and he said it's on page 43, paragraph 6.106. He pointed out that he argued that the IIT does address the issue of whether foaming is consistent with chlorine gas. Profuse rapid foaming, as observed and reported in Duma, is consistent with chlorine gas. And he says that the IIT did address that issue. I point out two things in response. First of all, my argument was that the IIT's toxicologist does not issue a judgment on whether or not the symptoms, including profuse foaming seen in Duma, are consistent with chlorine gas. The IIT's toxicologist does not. Now, there is a reference, which the representative from the UK pointed to, of the IIT making a claim about chlorine gas and foaming, not specific to Duma, not assessing whether those specific symptoms in Duma are consistent, but the IIT does make one reference, which I will read. This was the paragraph he referred me to. It says this.
Now, before he gets to this, this just shot to my head, and I wanted to make this claim.
Yeah.
So, people like TYT, they bring on foreign policy people like Matt Duss.
Yes, CJ.
And then they shun people like Aaron Monte, who's at the UN Security Council trying to uncover a cover-up, a scandal.
Jenks said he's on the payroll of tyrants. That's he accused him of being on the payroll of tyrants. And a conspirant was like, fuck Aaron Monte. But this is what real adversarial journalism, which TYT has never done. This is how you weaponize journalism for the working class and to challenge the government because they're afraid to address Aaron Monte's claims. They can't even take questions from them. Meanwhile, they're more than happy to take questions from someone like Chuck Todd, right? They're more than happy. Madeleine Albright is more than happy to have a sit-down conversation with Anna Kasparian. Can you imagine Aaron Monte with Madeleine Albright?
No.
Meanwhile, Anna Kasparian has had a great old time with her. This is why Aaron Monte is banned. Why don't you see Aaron Monte on MSNBC? You see Sam Cedar on MSNBC. He's on there Russiagated.
Why don't you see Aaron Monte on Independent? Why isn't Aaron Monte on Breaking Point? Why isn't Aaron Monte on Majority Report? Why aren't they bringing him in to do an interview about this Security Council testimony instead of doing something on PragerU? Or,
Anna brought on Matt Duss. Anna brought on Matt Duss like, this is a great foreign policy thinker of the progressive left. The guy that we pick apart. We can't stop pausing the video when the guy speaks because he lies so much. But Anna Kasparian, Matt Duss, he's like, oh my God, this is the brilliant. He's the Noam Chomsky of our time. But she avoids to hate Aaron Monte, though. These people are the clowns.
Yeah, no, I don't know the background and the history of why they became to hate each other. But you can hate somebody and acknowledge that, hey, they do some good reporting. Like, I don't necessarily am not the biggest fan of Jordan, but Status Quo does some good reporting. The reporting part, I can honestly, give kudos to. Like, if you're an honest actor, you can say, oh, yeah, I'm not a fan of Aaron Monte's personality, whatever his tweets and who he hangs around with, but he does good reporting. That's just somebody being honest. Now, if you're letting some other personal beef cloud, or you're letting because he's attacking the Democratic Party because they're corrupt and imperialist, now you have to attack him because he's attacking your team. To me, that just tells me you're unserious. And that's all the video we need to play on that. But I just wanted to play it to show the contrast between your comrades and our comrades. Like the contrast between what your comrades are doing. Anna Kasparian said, hey, let's go ahead and do a show with Ben Shapiro. And then you got Aaron Monte that's doing this. You get what I'm saying? Like, it's like it's a difference in how serious you want to be as a leftist, and that's my final word on this segment.
Yeah, well said. Great work by Aaron Mate. So today I cut.
Oops, I was taking it out too.
Yeah, it's cool. It's cool. I think that's all I have today. Just I'm doing a short show today, 90 minutes. I think it's having Garland
That's
on.
plenty.
Great.
Plenty.
What do you have anything coming up, CJ? I have probably some more guest announcements next week. Nick
no,
and Night.
I'm probably
Nick and Night. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, you're gonna do a Nick and Night tonight?
No, Nick and Night on Wednesday. I want to say Nick and Night
Wednesday.
Wednesday. Andrew will be back as well. We upload every day. JV shows on Sundays. Sabby will be live on RBN in about 90 minutes. 6 p.m. Eastern time. She used to go live on RBN on Fridays. So we got a lot of content. The point being, subscribe. We got a link to our Patreon in the description as well to help us continue to grow and pay our labor as well. So that's all I have, CJ. Make sure you guys share. That's how we grow. We have about 500 people watching now. They were a pretty strong live stream. Let's keep it going. The algorithm is no friend of ours, so you guys spreading the word and having people like Garland on helps out a lot as well. So much love to all you guys. See you guys around. Pass to you, CJ, to close us out.
Yeah, so what I want to do is I'm going to play the video that Aaron made as our closeout. It's a nice video about police murdering our youth. And it's a visually catching, eye-stunning sort of video. Now, I have to say this all the time. I'm not going to play the sound because the sound may flag a copyright. But I'll tell you the song is Nas, and it's called "Cops Shot the Kid." But again, even watching it without the sound, it is a visually sort of stunning video. So let's play it. I have it here. I finally found it. Now, this is sort of the work, some of the work along with editing our videos. This is some of the work that Aaron does for us. So make sure if you're able to contribute, you do.
Cops used to come around, in my neighborhood. All right, you kids, stop having so much fun. Move along.
Here we go, right here. So it's the name of the song is "Cop Shot the Kid," and this is a great video about police brutality, and it shows the actual footage of some of the killings. So you have the murderer on the left, and then you have the victim on the right, and you have that cop, and then the victim on the right, and you see the footage, the actual footage of some of the murders that were caught on camera. And this is great content that Aaron put together. I'll play like 5 seconds of sound real quick.
In the heat. The cop cars on the creek doing they.
So that's all I'll play. The cutoff is like 6 or 7 seconds. You play like 3 or 4 seconds and then nothing will happen. But go to our Twitter page and you can watch this with the sound playing. Just go to our Twitter page. But if you're able to contribute to our labor fund, please do. It pays for things like this, and I'll put the fee up there. But yeah, this is a great content. I got to be honest. I didn't even expect it to be this good. I did not. I've been trying to get this content made for a long time. I'll give you another snippet of sound. So that's what it's saying. It's cop shot the kid. The cop shot the kid. So it's a great video right here. In some cases, you can see that it was more than one cop. This cop shot his own daughter in that one. And you can, this is actual footage. So great content by Aaron. This one, 5 cops. That's actual footage. And she said it was actually painstaking to find names and pictures of a lot of these cops because they go underground as far as public don't want to put their information out because they know people would be upset. So I'm going to leave you with that. Thank you for being a part of today's show. We're going to exit after this video. Thank you, everybody.